YouTube truly is a wonderful platform. Over the years, many content creators have found their place and actually let their imagination flow through their videos. Among those many creators, there is one in particular who never fails to make me laugh with their videos, and it's Nthpo. If you're not familiar with him, Nthpo is an American college student who shares his adventures on the internet with his friends. Not only is he quite handsome, or as we say in French, c'est un beau gosse, I tend to find him actually very hilarious. Anyway, earlier this year, I watched one of his videos where his teddy bear Paul and his friend Paige are getting married. Yes. But the video was really fun to watch because Nthpo actually rented an entire church and asked actors to play as priests to celebrate the ceremony. And yeah, it was just fun to watch. It was very original, and that's why I like most of his videos.
At the beginning of this video, Nthpo asks an alleged lawyer if it is legal for a human being to marry a teddy bear. This person has their talking time cut short when they declare that they are not, in fact, a lawyer, and the wedding happens nonetheless.
This silly little joke could have been laughed at and then forgotten while watching the video. But not for me. Not for my legal practitioner soul. So when Nthpo asked if it is legal for a human being to marry a teddy bear, I yelled a massive nope at my screen. But then I wondered, I know it's not legal. I know it's no. But why? On what legal basis? And so my mind drifted away. Yeah, I have issues.
As usual, this legal question will be studied through French law. I do not know how it goes in the US, and frankly, you guys, given the weird stuff you tend to pull, I'm not sure I want to know.
And now it's time to explore one of the loveliest branches of law, family law. It's clear, straight to the point, logical. It's everything I adore when I study a type of law.
Family law is rather large, with the questions of the children and parents' rights, the legislation surrounding adoption, inheritance, and it covers every legal question regarding family in a wide sense. So, of course, we have laws surrounding marriage.
Well, what are rules if you wish to get married in France? It's actually enshrined in the Civil Code, from Article 143 to 164. A marriage can only be contracted by two people, either of the same sex or different sex. Now, what's to highlight here is the mention of a person, because only two people can get married. But then again, what's the definition of a person in French law?
In French law, a person can either be physical or moral. What interests us here is the physical person, as a moral person can refer to an association, a company, a union, and not to an actual human being.
A physical person is a human being born alive and viable, whom is capable of reasoning, and has an array of both rights and obligations as a subject of law.
I'd like to explain the notion of born alive and viable a bit further, so you may understand why it's important. To consider a human being as a physical person according to law, this human being must have been born alive and viable. Being born alive here means that the baby has been able to take their first breath on their own outside of their mother's uterus. However, being alive at birth is not the only criteria. The baby must also be viable, aka having the natural capacities to survive, even if they require a bit of help at first, for instance when they are premature. Those requirements are not directly written down in the Civil Code. It has been deduced throughout several articles mentioning a child born alive and viable, for instance regarding inheritance or birth and death certificates.
For your personal knowledge, animals, despite having rights, do not have any obligations, and since they are allegedly not capable of reasoning the way human beings do, well, they don't fit into the physical person category. Up until 2015, animals were considered legally as objects and not sentient living beings. Now they do have rights whether they're domesticated or savage, but surprisingly enough, even though they are no longer considered objects, well, their rights are placed under the property regime, which is used for buildings, furniture, jewels, objects. Make it make sense.
So, what do we have here? Well, on the one hand we have Paul, whose name is also Jiggleskog. He is a teddy bear and is made of polyester. On the other hand, we have Paige, a human college student according to several of Nthpo's videos. She seems to be born alive and viable, appears to be capable of reasoning, and I assume she has a wide variety of both rights and obligations as a subject of law.
Paul, as a teddy bear, is considered an object by French law. Indeed, he was not born alive and viable, he is physically incapable of reasoning, and he was quite literally made in a factory. By pure logic, it not only means that Paul is not a human being, he isn't a being at all. While objects have a form of protection granted by French law through the notion of property, such protection cannot be affiliated to having proper rights and by extension proper obligations. While Paige is perfectly capable of getting married if she wishes to do so, with the simple fact that Paul is in fact not a physical person, well, a marriage between the lovely pair cannot be legally binding. I could stop there. The simple little fact is enough to answer the question, can we legally marry a teddy bear? And the answer is no. Yes, I could let it go, but I won't. Because I can. See, being a physical person is not the only condition to being able to get married. It is essential, of course, but it's not the only one. Not only do you need to be over the age of majority, but you also need to be fully able to consent to marriage. Otherwise, children could get married, and it would get messy. But the tea from the divorces would be boiling hot, though.
As a quick reminder, the age of majority in France is 18 years old since 1974. For the reference, it's Article 414 of the Civil Code.
And once you reach this age, legally speaking, you're an adult. Morally though, this ain't it, chief. The necessity of majority is written in Article 144 of the Civil Code. No marriage can be contracted before the age of 18. Because yes, just in case you missed the fact, well, marriage is a contract.
For your personal knowledge, exceptions do exist and can be granted by your local public prosecutor, if you have a serious motive behind your request. For instance, if you are emancipated, aka you are technically a minor but thanks to a legal decision, you are assimilated to an adult, then you might request from your public prosecutor if you can get married, but their approval is not automatic. Such decisions tend to be rare, and also, to be emancipated, you must be at least 16 years old.
In our case, Paige appears to be over the age of 18. But what about Paul? What if we took his age into account?
Paul the bear from the Djungelskog lineage was created and commercialized by IKEA. While I could not find the rightful date of commercialization, the oldest comments went back to 2018 on the IKEA website.
This means that Paul, as a commercialized concept, could be at least 5 to 6 years old. He could be older, but he also could be younger if he was made later by the factory. Age-wise, if we were to take his age into account, Paul is actually a toddler. Not only Paul isn't legally allowed to get married, but Paige, darling, your luck is just an object and not a human being. Otherwise, that would sound like jail time for you, baby.
Finally, consent. It is key to the viability of a marriage, hence why Article 146 of the Civil Code is quite straightforward, by saying without consent there is no marriage. This consent must be genuine and enlightened, meaning that it cannot be forced, or the person cannot be manipulated into a false conception of marriage in order to give some sense of consent, but not actual and proper consent.
Paige, as an adult and most importantly a human being, seems to be capable of making her own decisions and being able to grasp the implications and consequences of a marriage. By understanding all of this, she can give an enlightened consent. And as for Paul, well, Paul is a teddy bear. As seen in multiple videos, well, many people make him walk and talk, but he does not seem to be able to do so on his own, which makes sense, he's a teddy bear. But he does not have a brain and quite literally cannot form a single thought. Come to think of it, Paul is literally the embodiment of no thoughts had empty. Wow. Therefore, he is actually incapable of considering marriage and by extension, of course, giving consent. It's not that he doesn't understand, it's just that he physically cannot do so. And without consent, no marriage. It's as simple as that. And Paul, you asked, and I delivered. For all those arguments, unfortunately, Paige and Paul cannot be legally married. At least in France. I haven't checked other countries. And that's it for me. I really hope you enjoyed this video, that every concept I mentioned was clear to you, because I know that French law and law in general are quite difficult to grasp. So don't hesitate to ask in the comments if something didn't seem clear to you. I'll do my best to explain it for you. As always, don't hesitate to leave a comment, like, subscribe. It would be good for referencing, and I suppose I'll be seeing you around. Bye!